each
This
one of you a
conference will
little,
now be recorded.
okay, we would give you guys a little bundle of fabric that would have a variety of fabric in it. But obviously we can't do that today, but we can still work our way through the process. So if you don't have your machine on, you should go ahead and turn it on, and you're going to have some sort of screensaver here if you're on an EPIC 1 or 2. And it's going to look something like this. And I was playing around, so yours is not going to look like that. So the first thing that I like to tell folks on the EPICs, either one of them, is your get out of free jail card is up here at the very top. And that is the joy of sewing. And whenever I'm stuck on the machine, and especially when we first got the machine, you know, you get to somewhere and you just don't know where to go. So always the get out of jail free card is up at the top of the screen, and that way you don't have to turn your machine off. Not that any of you would do that when you got stuck. Betty DeBerry laughing at me. So that's the thing to remember. Just go up there and touch that guy at the top, and that'll get you out of trouble. And it applies same on the EPIC 1. And if you're looking at my screen right now, you can see that it's going to tell me, hello, this is our dealer number at the store, and that I've spent 26 hours and 40 minutes sewing together with the EPIC2. And then over here, it says it's got some little tips for today that I could join on and take a look at. Then the other thing that's down below on my screen, and if you guys aren't logged in and on your SewNet with your Wi-Fi, you're not going to see this part. But if you are logged on, you're going to see all these various projects that we could just pop into and take a look at and pick something to work on. So on the EPIC 1, since I see Lee and Diane there, do you guys have that bar there like that with the blog, or no? You don't see that? Okay, all right. So there we have a few differences. You know, I can barely remember what I had on my machine across the way here than what's on this one. So yeah, let alone, you know, it's just like the software. Well, did we get that in? Oh, there is one, and I know if you guys get on the SewNet, there's one that Mary did, and it has a set of masks, and they have like the funky faces that you've been seeing people wear. So I am going to click on that and see if it's going to show you what that looked like if you haven't seen it. Mary made it, and it's like people that have a bad set of teeth, like a really bad set of teeth, but it looks like it might not want to come up.
It's up on mine, Carol.
Is it? Okay, Judy, there you can see those little masks. See, one of them has the tongue out, and I think they're like shark teeth or hillbilly teeth. Right. So those are kind of fun if you need a, well, that's interesting. Anyway, don't let me get sidetracked. So just wanted to let you know those were there in case you're tired of making masks and you want to make a different one. So you do have that all there.
Just to let you know, SewNet Library, for those that have subscribed, have additional faces for masks that they just put out. It's cute.
Okay. Oh, good, good. And I saw it looks like they put some more ribbon designs up too.
Yeah, yes, they did.
Yeah. Well, it looks like it doesn't like my Wi-Fi. That's what's the matter right now. Okay. Anyway, so don't forget you have your blog there that it has the projects, it has the designs, and don't forget if you see something there you want and you go ahead and click on the design, it'll load it into your cloud and you'll have access to the design So I would go ahead and save the design if it's something you're not going to sew today, but you feel like in the future you might want to save it. Okay, so the first thing we have on the list is to talk about feet, the feet that came with your machine. And you guys all know that, but I want to show you, sorry, what was that? Okay, just a reminder, you guys know what feet are what, but I'm going to just give a few highlights on a couple of them. And that is the A foot. And if you get out your A foot and your B foot, you're going to see that they look very similar to one another. If you turn those 2 feet over and we look at them on the back side, that's where we start seeing some differences in the feet.
Right.
Okay, so I get a lot of questions on, well, can I use the A or the B? Well, usually you can get away with either one, but the reason you want the B foot instead of the A foot is the B foot on the back side has that groove, and that groove lets your thicker decorative stitches pass through. So if you try to do a satin stitch, a big thick satin stitch, and you use the A foot and it starts hanging up, it's because it's flat on the bottom and it doesn't have that groove to let things pass through. So I do like to point out the difference between the A and the B. The other thing is, if you have the EPIC2, you're going to notice that you have a cutout in the back part of that B foot. And I'm sorry, is that the B foot? Oh, the A foot, I'm sorry.
A foot.
A foot. Yeah, A foot. And so that cutout is so that you can pull down your IDT and pop it in the back side. So if I was looking at the B foot on the EPIC or on the EPIC2, the B foot, you can't use the IDT. And I can tell that because it's flat along that edge. All right, where the A foot has the indentation that will let the IDT come down. So that's the main way for you to tell the difference between A and B foot on the EPIC2. The other thing is, if you have an EPIC and an EPIC2, the feed teeth and the distance there in the throat plate, those are larger on the EPIC2. So some of your feet might not perform well unless you actually have the ones that are for the EPIC2. Those are kind of key things on the feet. The other thing I want to remind you is this is the zipper foot, and I know a bunch of guys did the zipper class and made a little, used the zipper, made that little pocket to cover the zipper. But on your zipper foot, remember, this is your zipper foot. It has a letter E on it, and you can put it on either side depending on which way you're sewing. Whoops, sorry. So you can put your zipper foot on either side of this so that you can get coverage but move your needle close to the teeth as you want. So those are your, those are the ones that I think people have questions about.
And you can use your IDT with the zipper foot too.
Oh yeah, correct. And we can tell that by looking at the back end of it and seeing that it's open.
Right.
And I have seen people put these on backwards, so it is possible it goes on this way. All right? Yes, yes, indeed. So any questions just on your generic feet there that came with the machine? We'll get into some of them in a little more detail, but.
What do you use the C foot for?
The C
What?
foot? The C foot would be used to make a buttonhole in the horrible, if you were in a horrible situation and the edge of your garment was too lumpy or too thick for that wheel to spin around on your regular buttonhole foot.
Oh, okay.
So,
Or if you wanted a giant size buttonhole.
yeah, yeah. I did like a denim thing one time, and it had so much fabric there. You know, like there was a, what do you call it? Where the buttonholes are, a facing and all that, and it was just too much. And so I had to, heaven forbid, do a manual buttonhole. And then in the case of that, like I showed you guys in one of the other classes, I'll go do it in the embroidery hoop in a minute because it's going to be perfect and I don't have to push the reverse button like I would if I did it on this. And then there's one other thing on your tray. Okay, if you have a EPIC2, I think it's the same on the EPIC, you have a little guy down in that tray that has a hole in it. And the purpose of that hole is that you can put your foot down in there and it won't stick up too far. Do you guys know you had a slot in there that had a hole?
This one.
So on the EPIC2, it's on the third one in, and that little hole holds, hang on, where's myself? Okay, so that little hole in the back of your tray, that's where that edge of the buttonhole goes, of the manual buttonhole goes. Okay? Who knew that?
I did.
I knew Judy did. Yeah, so that's kind of nice because then everything fits in there real cool. Because on some of the machines, you can't close the lid if you don't have it down in that hole. Okay, so that's just a quick overview of the feet. And the buttonhole and that, we'll do the buttonhole later on. I don't know if we'll do it today or not. So I'm just glancing here so I can get to the stuff I really want to show you. All right. So we're going to start today with sewing. So on my screen, and you guys can select sewing. All right. And when we select sewing, that gets us into the sewing advisor. Let me see if I can come straight on in. Can you guys see that okay? All right. So when we get to the sewing advisor, this is how we're going to start or select our stitches. So if we're in, let's just go ahead and come down here and say start new. And everybody can do that, start new. Sorry, I didn't, sorry. Oh yeah, I did, okay. All right, so when I go to start new, I'm just going to get up pretty much my whole menu of stitches. And the way we're going to select a stitch, which I know you guys know, is you're just going to touch the stitch. And if you have an EPIC2, I keep telling this thing, don't show me that 7mm thing, but it won't stay away. So just going over what's on your screen. It's going to tell you the foot you need, which up here on mine, it's saying that I need an A foot. And it's right up here going to show you what fabric you selected. So right now I'm set up to sew on a medium woven, and then down below it tells me a needle is an 80, and it gives me a little letter code there that says I'm on stitch A2. And in the case of this particular one, it's showing me on an EPIC2 that that is indicating that I can use my IDT on that particular stitch. So one thing that I find people having a little bit of an issue with is down here is where all your settings are. And if you somehow have a project popped up, Let me see if I can make one pop up. So if I somehow have a project popped up, like if I came into this place, I'm going to go back and show you what I mean. You stay where you're at if you're following along. So if I go to sewing and I say I want to make a seam, instead of just saying start new, it automatically puts this little window up on the bottom of my screen. And then people call me and say I can't adjust my length or my width, or I don't know where it is. I don't know if it's on the tension or where it's at. So what you have to remember here is you can get that guy out of your way. So if I touch this far corner one, and this should be the same on the EPIC, ladies, it'll put it down out of the way. And the minute I put that project down out of my way, then I have access again to my settings. So here, this is my stitch width. In the case of this, there is no width because it's a straight stitch. But I can still use that function right this minute by saying, okay, I want to move my needle position over to the left. And you could see my needle position moving right on the screen. If you touch one of your buttons there and you get off the color, if you get off the default, the color number is going to change. So if it's black, you're on the default. If it's a different color, I'm off the default. Now I have mine set up to match my machine. My screen is set up for a vivid sunset. Judy, what are your colors, black and blue as well when you're on or off the default?
I have mine on burgundy blush.
Okay, and
because
are they?
It showed up better on the camera.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, they're black and blue. Yeah.
Black and blue. Okay, so they're the same.
I don't think that changes.
Okay,
yeah.
I didn't know if it did, but yeah. So I can tell them off the default. So if I want to go back to the default, I can just do that. All right. So the next one is your stitch length. And everybody, if you have selected medium woven, you're probably set up at a 2.5. So thing to remember here is if I start making adjustment, and it's hard to see on my straight stitch, but on any other stitch, when you start adjusting your length and your width, remember you can see those changes right on the screen. Then the next one, which people can't find, is right now I'm in the tension setup. So you see down here, like it looks like your two tension discs coming in and out like this. Those guys are right there. The reason I'm on regular tension is because I'm on a straight stitch. So that's one thing that was discovered right after they came up with that extra set of tensioning units was your stitch doesn't look good unless you're on regular tension for a straight stitch. Any other time you're in a decorative stitch, it's going to automatically choose the best thing, but you can override that. So if you look down here, again, I'm set at a 4.6 of tension. And if I want to adjust that, it's going to start changing colors, number one. But the other thing beside it is this little switch. And you'll have this switch a lot of times on all your different screens. So if it's there, it means if you touch that, you can get something different. So if I touch that, in the case of a straight stitch, it switched me over to presser foot pressure. Okay, so if I wanted to manually adjust my presser foot pressure here on this straight stitch, I could do that. So I don't want to manually adjust my presser foot because we have a sensor system and it does all that automatically. But that's what the stitch would do in the case of a straight stitch. The other thing that looks different now, you notice all my stitches are gone, right? I only have the stitch up there to make a seam. So depending on how I came in, is going to dictate what this screen is going to look like. So I want to switch it back right now. I'm going to go back to my Joy of Sewing, my Get Out of Jail Free, and I'm going to go back down here to Sew Start New. When I do that on the Start New, then all my stitches are available. The other thing that's on this screen that you won't be able to tell if you use it or not is these are your mirror image keys. So you got your mirror vertical and flip it side to side. So those are going to be available on almost every stitch you use. So let's go ahead and pick stitch number, on the EPIC2, it's number 9. It's just that straight zigzag. I think it might be 8 on the EPIC, plain EPIC. So now if you look at your screen, a couple things have changed. Now down here, it's turned into the deluxe stitch system. You see how it looks like a different symbol? That symbol matches the little picture on your machine somewhere. It says deluxe stitch system. So that's what we're on right now. So if I say, okay, I want to do this with regular tension and not that, I can touch that switch. Oops. And it took me to presser foot pressure. So it really doesn't want me doing that stitch with regular tension. So the other place we have a switch on the zigzag is go ahead and make your zigzag width. And you can see now it looks like a zigzag instead of that straight stitch. Make your zigzag width 2.5. Okay, if I make that 2.5 and now I say, all right, that's how big I want my zigzag to be, but I want to guide off of a different part of the toe. So if I touch that switch now under zigzag, I can take that entire stitch and move that stitch around. Okay, I can move it all the way left, or I can move it over to the right. And I have not changed my zigzag, the size. I've just moved the position of it. And the reason I like to do that is because sometimes I can guide it better at a particular place. And that's why I will create the stitch to the size you want and then move it around to where you like to guide best. Yeah, for example, if I have on my, if I put on my open toe foot, a lot of times I like to guide right on the edge of my open toe foot. And so I can just take my whole stitch once I get it the way I want it and move it to the left or the right. Judy, do you use that?
Sometimes, yes, it's great for applique particular.
Exactly. That usually if we're showing somebody the machine and they say they applique, we will show them that feature on an applique because then you can, it's a lot easier to guide it using that. So no questions? Any questions?
Oops.
All right. So I'm trying to think if I showed you everything on the screen for that part. All right. So the other thing we can do, I'm going to see if this is going to work. I'm going to touch that medium woven right there without going back to the Joy of Sewing, and I can change my fabric and then go ahead and tell it to start new. Maybe. Hello.
Hi, Carol.
Hello.
This is Bonnie. I
Just
can't
touch
get
your-
online.
You're what?
I can't get online. I'm on the phone and I've never done this before. I can't get onto on my computer. I can't log you in.
Okay, but you got into the meeting. So I think you might have just, so if you're in the meeting right now, look and see if you can touch your camera on the phone. up at the top.
Okay.
And if you touch that camera on your phone, you should be able to, so you can't see anything right now?
No. Well, I guess I'll just have to listen. It's the GoToMeeting app, correct?
Yes, and you can use it on your phone or your iPad or any of those.
Yeah.
Does anybody use it on their phone that can tell her off the top of their head? Because I never use it on the phone.
RWH email. I can't.
Wow. You know what? They would just don't let me interrupt you. I'll just keep muddling. It's asking for my password is the problem.
Yeah, and you shouldn't need a password if you clicked right in on the link.
Password. Shouldn't need a password, she said.
Yeah, it should have let you clicked right into the meeting. See, you're in the meeting, so I think you just need to.
Well, I'm on the phone. I'm not on my computer.
Yeah, but you should let it, somewhere there should be something with the camera that you can turn it on so you can see my screen.
Yeah, well, I'll just listen. I'll keep muddling with it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So
You can always watch the recording later.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
The other thing is I've had better luck just using my browser on my computer and going GoToMeeting.com/join and then typing in the number. I've never used the app.
Oh, and what is the number? The 204 number?
yeah, it should be there at the bottom. It should be there on the link on the calendar. Yeah.
Oh, I think I'm in.
That's what I do. I just
Said go on the calendar.
Yeah. Yeah.
It works.
Oh, I think I'm in.
There's something
Because
at
I
the-
can see Diane and Drew and Mary.
Here you go.
But I don't, yes. Okay.
It's
I
a good.
think.
And you're just seeing my screen, Bonnie,
Yes,
because I'm just
correct.
kind of walking through things on my screen.
Can you see me?
Today. There we go. Very good. Yeah.
I'm sure some of them can
Yeah.
see you, but because I'm using my iPad for presenting, I can't see everybody, but I can hear you.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay. You're welcome. Okay, so I'm leaving page 5, Jude, and
The organizer has not yet started GoToMeeting. This call will be disconnected. Please dial in again.
okay, that was somebody else. We're still here. Okay. The next thing that I want to show you, if you guys don't have any questions about those icons, remember the biggest thing is if that guy gets in your way and then you can't see your things, right? This one over here on the far right puts it away. And if you want to look at it again, you just do that book and it'll pop up. If you wanted to, let's say you were putting in a zipper and wanted to see your details here, I can touch this and that'll move it up to the top of the screen. So that way you can still watch your little videos as you're going along, and it's not impacting this stuff down here that sometimes we do need to see. And you can tell from the 4 other icons there that you can move it on the side of the screen, the other side of the screen, or let's say you're doing something you've never done before, we can go ahead and touch that big square and it'll fill up the whole screen. And you can then see your step-by-step in, full vision. And I forget what this one does. Oh, you can select your fabric from there. Okay, I never pushed that one before. We're always learning something new. Okay, so let me see if it'll go back then and say, okay. It didn't do anything. All right. So that's how you move around there. Because I do get a lot of calls that people can't see what they think they want to see. Let's see here. So the next thing we're going to talk about is free motion. So down here on the bottom, you have a little icon that I say looks like scrambled eggs, or it looks like a little squiggly stipple. You're going to touch that. And when you touch that, you're going to see your free motion options, and your feed teeth are going to drop down automatically when you do that. So if I say I want to do free motion spring action, I'm going to touch that, and you heard my feed teeth go down, I think. So let me get out a couple other feet. So if I selected this one here, the free motion spring action, I would be using this foot. Alrighty, so that's the foot that we like to call the hopping foot, the spring foot. And that foot, when you put it on, you are going to take the ankle all the way off. And this little doohickey sticking out there is going to go on top of the needle bar on your machine. Okay, so that's the hopping free motion. And it says you could do that with the Q foot, but personally, I wouldn't want to do that with the Q foot because you can't see through the opening of the Q foot. You don't have any visibility. So that's why if you're going to free motion with the spring foot, I would recommend you get this hopper. Right? The next one down is a new one. And if your EPIC is current, you should have the one that says free motion ruler foot. So if I switch to that one, I'm going to put on the foot that came, or that you can purchase from Viking, and it'll work on your FOF icon, or it'll work on your EPIC, either one of your EPICs. And I'm not sure if they added that foot onto a diamond or not. I don't know off the top of my head on that one. Okay, so the difference between this foot is that it only has the one screw hole. So when I select that and I put this foot on my machine to use with the rulers, I don't have to do anything else. I pretty much should be set. I don't have to do a bunch of monkey business with the height of the presser foot. I'm gonna see if I can find one of the old style ones. I have one laying around here somewhere. Hang on. I hid it from that one out this morning. Okay. So here's the difference between the two feet. Okay, the one in my left hand over here is the original foot that we used to use with the rulers. And you see how it's got all that extra area there? That's so when you put the screw in, you can manually adjust the presser foot height. If you do the one that they designed right for the machine now, all you got to do is put it in. You don't have to worry about making any adjustment to the height of the presser foot because it should be at the right place all the time. So that is the difference between the free motion, the one that comes with the one that's a Viking one, and the one that comes from Westerly Rulers. The other kind of free motion is the bottom one, and that is the floating foot that looks like your old R foot. I hardly ever use this anymore, but if I was doing a project and I needed the free motion for 30 seconds, I might use this because I'm too lazy to unscrew the screw and put in a different foot. You know, it's the quickest way to be ready to free motion, but it's not the ideal foot to free motion with, especially if you're just learning to free motion. Okay, but that is the other foot. It is what we used to know as the R foot on all our other Viking embroidery machines. And then also, depending on which one of these you select, you do have some presser foot pressure that you can make an adjustment with. It's not going to be there for every one of them, but it will be depending on your thing. And then when you're done doing your free motion, you cannot just check off. You want to uncheck and then get out. And you're going to notice when you get out of free motion that your feed teeth still did not come up. So I know they didn't come up, and Judy knows they didn't come up. But if you take a stitch or you do one rotation with your flywheel, your feet are going to come up. So there's no manual switch on your icon for that, or your EPIC for that. So they will come up as soon as you take a stitch. And that sound you hear with them going down, that's totally normal. All right, so that's how we set up for free motion on the machine. And I know, Bonnie, you're going to be doing that soon, so that should hopefully help you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now I'm going to move my screen over a little bit. And I'm going to point at the buttons. Oh boy, and you can't see them at all. Well, maybe you can. Okay, and the buttons are, the nice thing about Viking is that most of these symbols are exactly what they were when we first got a machine from them. I'm trying to make it a little lighter, but something's making a shadow. Okay, so starting on the top left over here, the needle with the little piece of thread going through it, that is your needle threader. And I'm assuming everybody knows how to use that. The one thing I will say on the needle threader is when you're at this point, you're going to bring it under those two. When you take it back into this point, you want to make sure you got it clicked in there. Don't just kind of willy-nilly lay it. You want to push it all the way back. And then you're going to bring it around the front to the cutter and cut that tail off. One little tip I want to tell you, if for one reason or another over time it seems like your needle threader's not rolling, if you put it here and let that tail hang, it'll probably thread. And that might get you through a couple days until you can get it in for us to do an adjustment. But leaving the tail there can help you sometime in the jam if it's being temperamental. Okay. So the next one is your stop start button. That's to the right of the needle threader, the one with the arrow and the square. On the EPIC, I think it still says start stop, right? Or does it have the symbol?
It has the symbol on mine.
Okay, thank you, Diane. Thank you, because I couldn't remember anymore. So then below that, we have our speed button. So you can touch it once, and when you touch the speed button, then over there in your screen, whoops, then over in your screen, you're going to get your little speed limit thing. And you can adjust it right here on the screen with your finger, or you can come over here to the bar and use the bar. Okay, so you got two ways that you can adjust your speed limit. I like that, speed limit. Okay. Then down below that, this symbol does look a little different than it did before. That is your pattern restart. So if I touch that guy, he's going to take me to the beginning of the stitch. And then you're going to see the dot. Hold on, don't get seasick. Okay, you're going to see that black dot at the top of the stitch. That's where the stitch is going to start. So if I pick a different stitch, you're going to see the start of that stitch move, and that black dot will always show you where the stitch is going to start at. So let's say, for example, you were sewing along and the thread broke and you needed to kind of get back where you were. If you touch that pattern restart button, and then you know where the stitch is going to start. So that can help you if you had a thread break or you, heaven forbid, ran out of bobbin or something catastrophic like that. You broke a needle, which never happens. I don't know. Okay, so that's your pattern restart. The next one, this is the only one that's not on the EPIC1, is that's your laser guiding tool. So if you touch that, you're going to see your laser. Let me get something dark so you can see. I don't know, can you see that red line there? So right there is your laser. And if you guys touch your laser and then look over in your display screen, you're going to have a tool there to adjust the location of the laser. Okay, so that's right down here. So you can move the laser. Say you want to guide something a 1/4 inch from where you are. You can move the position of your laser from where it is to where you want it. And then the other thing you can do with your laser is you can make it brighter, depending on what color fabric you're using. Okay, so that's the place where you're going to control the intensity of the laser and control the location of the laser. All right, and that'll only pop up when we need it, when we have the laser on. When you're done with the laser, you can shut it off and you can see that that little dialogue disappeared off the screen. So you only have what you need on the screen. All righty. So then we have, down at the bottom, we have 2 reverse buttons, and they both do exactly the same thing. One's for left-handed, one's for right-handed, one's because somebody in Sweden thought we needed 2 reverse buttons. So if you touch it and engage it, you're going to notice that your little lights are going to light on that button. And then when they do that, you're going to sew in reverse until you release that button. And it works like this on all the Vikings. So if I touch it and release, then I'm going to go forward again. But if that light is on, you're going to continue to go backwards. All right, moving on to the next set of buttons. Uh-oh, I'm echoing.
Rush, you're making an echo. Turn it off.
Yeah, somebody just needs to mute themselves.
Okay, sorry about that.
Okay. That's okay. All right. So here we have next is the fixed stitch. So if you touch the fixed stitch, what's going to happen is it's going to do a tie off right in place before you start. If you are sewing along and you touch the fixed stitch, it'll do a tie off at the end. All right. Now there's a way we'll go into the settings. We haven't got there yet, but you can make it so every time you use the scissors, the next thing that happens is it's going to do a tie off, and that would be the fix. So remember, it's going to just tie off in place, and it's going to do immediately when you activate it. If you touch the stop key, so if you touch this stop key and you have a stitch up, you're going to notice now that all of a sudden you only have 1 stitch in your screen. You don't have that whole row of whatever the stitch was. So the stop key can act and do a couple things. So if you touch the stop key while you're sewing a pattern, a decorative stitch, it's going to sew the entire stitch and then it's going to stop. So if you want to complete, say you're making a flower and you want it to do the whole flower and then stop, you're going to touch that stop and it'll stop it at the completion of the pattern. So that's opposite of the fixed stitch. If you touch the fixed stitch, it's going to tie off immediately. It doesn't care you're not at the end of the pattern. So that's what the stop button does in sewing. And both of these two buttons do something different when we're in the embroidery mode, but we'll get to that a different day. So remember, the stop key can work as a single pattern, or it can make you, it'll make it so you complete the pattern and you'll,
Chelsea recommends or for others.
I see your kitty, Judy Evans. That was fun. Okay. So does anybody have any questions about the difference between fix and stop? All right. If you turn your stop off during embroidery, you are going to get an embroidery all in one color.
Oh.
So that's the difference between stop functioning in the embroidery versus functioning in the sewing mode. Likewise, if you touch the fix and you're in embroidery, then you're going to get a basting stitch around your design. So they have some different functions. Next one, needle up, needle down, pretty self-explanatory. Let me do this first. Okay. So if I touch the needle down, no matter what I do, when I stop, you're going to stop in the needle down position. And it does have a light, so you can quickly tell whether you have that function engaged or not. And even though you use the scissors and move on to something else, it's still going to retain that needle down function unless you shut it off manually like that. Okay, so what I want to show you now is if you don't have on your A or B foot, I'd like you to put that on. Either one, it doesn't matter. Yeah, I'll give you a second to get that on. And when you're putting your feet on, if you have trouble, just remember you're shooting, that bar is going to go in between the white and the black on your ankle. And that's how it's going to kind of snap in there. So the next thing I want to talk about is the presser foot up and presser foot down. Okay, if I put the, let me put my nice little beautifully marked up calendar under here. If I put the presser foot down and I do it by pushing this, the presser foot went all the way down and it's holding my fabric in place. If I touch the presser foot down the second time, it's now moved into the hover position. So if I need to make an adjustment to my seam allowances, for example, I can move it or say I'm not right on the line I wanted to be on. By putting it into that hover position, your fabric's still going to kind of stick on the feed dogs, so you're not going to lose your place, but it allows you to make some little minor adjustments without losing the whole thing. Okay, so that's presser foot down, because we used to have 3 buttons over here that were the presser foot down feature. Why are they doing that? It was light and then it's not light. Something. Oh, hello. Okay, go to meeting. My iPad's getting hot.
There you are.
Okay.
You're back.
All right. So, okay. So now I want you guys to push the presser foot up button, which is the foot with the arrow up. Push that one time. Okay. So that lifted your foot up into the regular presser foot up. If you push it the second time, that sound you heard was the feed dogs dropping down. And your presser foot went into what we like to call extra high lift. Why would you want to use this? let's say I'm starting to quilt a quilt and I got a whole bunch of big bulky stuff that I need to get under the presser foot. If I put it up into extra high lift, not only do I have more clearance, the feed teeth are down out of the way, and so your fabric's not going to hang up on them, and it'll be easier for you to get down under the foot. So that is the reason for your extra high lift. And again, once you start sewing, your feed dogs are going to come up automatically, so you don't have to worry about any manual switch or anything on your up and down of your feed teeth or your presser foot height. So then the next one we have is the scissors. If I'm sewing and I touch the scissors, it'll complete the pattern and then cut. It pretty much the scissors, we can't live without them. We're so glad we have them. I can't think of anything else to say about that. Okay, and then that takes us back. So we've covered all the buttons there on the front of the machine. So any questions about that? Judy, anything we missed on those?
Not on the buttons, but it came to mind that we didn't mention anything about the extra feed teeth in front
Oh, yes, good point. You want to show them that?
of the regular feed teeth.
I'm going to run and get some more water. If Judy's going to show you the extra
Let's see.
feed teeth.
Okay. Normally, you only have feed teeth behind the needle hole on your machine. On the EPIC2, they have added, and I'm going to take the throat plate off to show you. They have added, let's see if I can get Junior up here to show you. There is an extra row of single teeth. Let me put this in here. See that row of teeth in front of where the needle goes down into the bobbin case. Okay, somebody needs to mute.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jude.
Okay, anyhow, those are wonderful additions to our machines because especially when you're piecing and you're sliding your fabric up there, when you slide your fabric right up to your needle, it's over that extra set of feed teeth. So that extra set of feed teeth is going to pick up your fabric a lot quicker than having to wait until the other feed teeth cycle around and grab it to bring it underneath the needle. It was a, they did it on the FOF, and then when the EPIC2 came out, they did it on the EPIC2, and it's really a great feature.
Jude, since you have the machine open there, can you kind of show them a couple of things in there and what to look out for and what to be careful of when
Sure.
you're cleaning and some of the fuzz is not fuzz?
Okay, just a second. Let me get my camera up just a tish so I can use both hands. Come on, Junior, up. Okay. Because I think you can see better if I get it higher. Okay. All right. Can everybody see inside my machine here?
Yeah.
I'm gonna pull the top thread out. All right, so if on occasion you do need to clean your machine, like about every 3 or 4 hours of sewing or maybe a little more, and particularly if you're quilting, batting and flannel have a tendency to put a lot of fuzz in your machine. So then you would need to clean your machine out a little more often. But first off, let me slide this back in position. The way to take your throat plate off is you've got this little tool, and this is used to take your throat plate off. It is not a screwdriver. If you want to take a screw out, like your needle screw, you're going to use the other end of this tool because it has a slot that fits right in the screw slot, and it's magnetic, so it's going to grab onto that screw for you. And it also will work on the ankle screw. So don't use this end for a screwdriver. That is to pry your throat plate off, and you want to use it on the right edge of the throat plate, not the left edge. So just put that in there and twist it and pop that plate right up. Okay, once the plate is off, then this little gray thing just lifts out. And the only thing you need to do with it is to make sure that you clean out any fuzz that is underneath there. Take your bobbin out of the bobbin case, and then the bobbin case will just lift out, and it will collect fuzz underneath and on top here. And it has what I call a mustache right over here on the edge. That's supposed to be there. Please don't clean that off. That helps guide your thread in threading and in sewing. And it works a whole lot better if it's left on there. There also are some mustaches inside the machine itself here, right on this edge in front of this is your scissors arm. So right in front of the scissors arm and to the side of it. I don't know if you can see that better. Oh, come on. Right here to the side of it and to there are also some built-in mustaches. If I exercise the scissors, you can probably see them better. So see what happens here. So you've got a right there and right there. Those need to stay in your machine because they are critical to the operation of your scissors. So when you want to clean your machine, you have your cleaning brush. You want to twirl it around in there and get your fuzz out of the bobbin race. Once you've done that, you will often see threads and fuzz back in here and in the feed dogs. You can take your brush and fluff out your feed teeth here. Don't forget to do the ones in front. And you can reach down in behind and take out some fluff. But to get the majority of your fluff, if you can see this big hole back here in the bobbin race, you can maneuver that hole around in a circle, turning your hand wheel, and fluff out all the way around in your machine. And once you get back over to this part, you can reach in and get any of those threads that you can and fuzz that you see back in the back there. So do turn your hand wheel and move that hole around and reach in and fluff out all the way around. Also fluff out these two little square holes at the front. Okay. Whatever that was for. And once you get it all cleaned out nice, don't ever put any canned air and blow fluff back into the machine. You can use a vacuum with the little attachments and suck the fuzz out of it, but do not use canned air. The technician will use a compressor to blow stuff out, but when he does that, he's got all the covers off so nothing goes inside of the machine. So you're ready to put the machine back together, and your bobbin case is gonna go in with the 2 prongs to the back. I call it hook 'em horns. And there's a little ledge right on the silver part here that bobbin case is gonna sit on, and it will wiggle this much, and that's normal. Somebody have a question? Okay.
Hey, Jude, right there, you guys,
Yeah.
what Jude is showing you, if you've taken your machine apart and you've cleaned it, and then you go to start sewing again and it's not sewing right, is normally because of what she's showing you right there, the bobbin case is not set down in there properly. And then, you know, it's gonna just knot up and make a mess. So it's normally somewhere in there. If you don't get it back in right and it's not sewing right, that's what you wanna go take a look at. Cause that's the place where I see it happening. It just needs reseated.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, there's just that very little ledge that it sits on, and yes, it will move just this much. When you go to put this piece back in, set it down in the front of the hole, and then just let it fall flat. And if it doesn't fall flat, then your bobbin case also is not setting right, because the bobbin case still can wiggle with this in place. And then pick up your whichever stitch plate you're going to put on, either your zigzag plate with the big hole or your single hole plate, or usually for embroidery. Put whichever one that you want to put on. Hold it and put it all the way to the back of the opening first, then push down on the front, and it's going to be snug. So just give it, if it doesn't push down, then make sure you're all the way back. It needs to clip in there, and sometimes when your machine is brand new, it's a little tough. Then you're ready to put your bobbin back in, and I always hold on to the tail and cover my bobbin up, and then cut it, and then close it. If I don't do that, sometimes that tail pops out of place, and then the needle thread won't pick it up. So, short course on cleaning your machine. You can also, it's also a good idea fuzz will collect on the needle bar, so you can take your brush and clean that up a bit too. Okay?
Perfect.
So keep your machines clean. It makes a whole big difference when you have 4 pounds of fuzz in there.
Thank you, Judy.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
See, I wouldn't pop my plate off with you guys watching because it might not be good. Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. Yeah, I would. Okay. It's amazing how far it'll go before you really have to break down and clean it. And I don't recommend you do that, but it is kind of amazing. But when you have a carpet down there, you probably do need to start cleaning. Okay. So I am now going to talk about how we find out things on the machine. So we're going to go to the Joy of Sewing. And then we're going to go to the Knowledge Center. So anything you can't remember how to do, your information is all on board. I mean, there is a manual, but really everything is totally on board. So I've touched the Joy of Sewing. I'm going to the Knowledge Center. And then I want to go to, for this example, we're going to say, let's see, which thing do I want to go to? I've got these little topic pop-ups, excuse me, and I'm going to touch winding the bobbin. Okay, and then I have these numerous options under there. So let's say I want to go winding the bobbin. I'm going to touch that. And now I'm going to get my little display screen of how to do that topic. And I'm going to make it cover the whole screen. So I'm going to touch that. And, it didn't come all the way up. Let me see if I do it that way.
Mine didn't either.
That's interesting. It might be because the blog is showing. Okay, so this is going to show you how to wind a bobbin. So if I want to slide up into the next frame. Hello. Okay, let me see here. All right, when I slide it up to the next frame, now I have a little movie camera over here. And this totally applies to your EPIC1. So it looks like a little VCR, and if I touch that, it's going to show me exactly what I'm going to do, including clicking the thread into the loop up there. And then if I'm ready for the next step, I can go ahead and I'm going to touch that square, and then I'm going to tell it to play the rest of the way through. So it's going to show me the entire process of threading the down to the bobbin. So that little guy on the side where he had all those 3 little squares, if I touch that, it'll keep playing the whole thing. I mean, and it's showing in gory detail. You can really see the whole part of the process. And then you have your regular rewind, your go forward, and all that, right? Built on the screen. So let's say I'm done watching that part. I can go ahead and exit out, and then I can slide up to the next step. And again, you're going to touch the video, and it's going to show you the rest of the process, hopefully, if I touch the right thing. Down. Why does it keep stopping there? Okay. So you have 2 choices here when you're putting the bobbin on. I just wind it like that. I know Judy will show you to put it through the hole. That's up to you. And then you're going to slide the little gizmo at the side up. And then you can cut it when it's done winding, when it's full. But really, you guys, you have this kind of information at your fingertips the minute you turn the machine on. So, and the thing is, the movies, you won't tell if it's actually active and has a video until you have that screen highlighted. So I see my camera down here. I can't do anything with it until I get it into my main place. All right. You guys all know this. I'm just looking through the notes. Remember the H is going to go up, the crown is up, you're the queen. So in your knowledge center, you can search in there by topic. Let's say you haven't embroidered yet and you want to start your learn to embroider. So I could touch over here under my topic and go set up for embroidery. And then I could pick step by step what to do when getting ready for your embroidery. So it is all there. It's handy. You don't have to go find your manual. You have it right there built in on the screen. In addition to that tool for you to find things, Under the knowledge center, there's a stabilizer guide, and it'll list and tell you how and when to use the other stabilizer. If we go to quick start, that took us back where the topics were. Sewing instructions. Oh, this machine is, it's not on my Wi-Fi right now, so we're only seeing one screen in there, but the sewing instructions will show you things that are loaded that you could make. Oh, there's some stuff in here I didn't know was here anymore. Cushions, okay, braid. All right, so you can go through there and on that one. And then if you want to see the accessory guide, I have to tell you, I've never touched this one. So touch that one that says accessory guide, and then let's touch the quilt binder. Okay, and then
Got two of them.
Yeah. So I didn't know that was there. Did you know that was there, you guys?
Nope.
We always say we're still learning
Nope.
things. So it has all the
They keep
steps
putting
of
new
using.
stuff in.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's the thing, we always get a surprise when we do this because they put stuff in there we didn't know was there. Okay, so going back to the sewing advisor, I just want to talk about that in a little more detail. So let's touch sewing. Okay, let me look on my screen. Okay, so on your sewing, remember your screen kind of acts like a tablet or an iPad. So here under selecting fabric, you can go and swipe and go through your fabrics. Now let's say, I don't know let's touch heavy stretch. When I touch heavy stretch on my screen and look down here right directly below it, it actually has the words that tells me what is classified as a heavy stretch. And that would be your sweater knits and your fleece. If I touch stretch light, it tells me it's tricot, single layer jersey, etc. If I touch medium stretch, again, it's telling me the different kinds of stretch, swimsuit wear. So as long as you can semi-identify what kind of fabric you're sewing on, you can pick your fabric that you're working with. So let's say I was going to sew denim. If I was going to sew denim, that would be my heavy woven, and I'd look under here and I'd see denim, tweed, canvas, terry cloth. So anytime you're sewing that denim, it's going to be heavy woven. So at this point, I've selected heavy woven, blah, 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 and let's go ahead and touch a seam. And I have the project, I want to get it out of my way. I don't need them to tell me how to sew a seam. What I want to show you, what happened here when I switched to heavy woven is, it took my stitch length automatically to a 3.0. And I didn't have to know anything other than I am sewing on denim. And the machine did the rest for me. Okay. It stitched the stitch length for me. It told me I need a 90 needle. It told me what foot to put on, everything, just by selecting heavy woven. And a lot of folks don't realize that's what the sewing advisor does for you. So for an example, now let's go back to the Joy of Sewing again. And now I want you to go to a stretch light. And then I want you to touch the seam again. And again, my little thing is up here bugging, put that away. But what happened is now you have the lightning zigzag. It didn't even pick a straight stitch, but it says now I'm sewing on a stretch light. It says that I need a stretch 75 needle. And you'll notice it even has the color of a stretch needle, which is yellow up at the tippy top. And it changed to what we like to call the lightning zigzag. So think about sewing on a t-shirt. If you sewed on a t-shirt with a straight stitch and you went and pulled the fabric like this, the seam is probably going to pop. If you sew this seam, the seam's going to give and it'll stretch, and you're not going to pop your seam out of your sweatshirt, t-shirt. All right. So that is one of the examples that really shows what using the sewing advisor does for you. Even if, let's say I want to sew on leather. If I touch leather and tell it I want to make a seam, it's going to tell me what foot to put on. I'm kind of surprised it didn't tell me to put the non-stick foot on. But again, it's setting everything for you. One of the questions I get is, can I override this? Well, yes, you can. Let's say you don't like to use something. You can always override any of those settings, but you can always use those as the jumping off point. So you have all your different sewing techniques once you pick the fabric you're doing. So we're going to go back to medium woven. And just for general info, normally we're sewing at medium woven. If I'm piecing a quilt or something along those lines, we're normally sewing at a medium woven. If I'm actually quilting a quilt, the fabric I'm selecting then at that point is a heavy woven. So just kind of some of the generics of what you're using when. Then down under here, the basic sewing techniques combined with whatever fabric I selected, it's going to tell me what to do. So if I had a medium woven and I want to do an overcast, it's going to tell me what foot to put on. I'm going to put on the J foot, and I'm going to line up the fabric with the toe, and it's going to do an overcast for me. And I don't have anything else cluttering up my screen for information. The other one that I think is a pretty good example is, let's say that I'm on a medium woven, and now I want you guys to select a buttonhole. So I'm on a medium woven and I'm selecting a buttonhole. And it's going to bring up a particular buttonhole based on the fabric I selected. If I change that to, I'm going to change my fabric to a heavy woven now, and I'm going to go continue the buttonhole. And when I do that, do you see how it changed? And the buttonhole is much more open now because I've selected a heavy woven. So you don't even have to know what buttonhole is the right buttonhole. All you got to do is tell it the kind of fabric you're using. So just to show you how many buttonholes there are, if I go to my stitches, back into my stitch menu, and I touch A, and I start sliding down here, you can see that there's like, I don't know, 17 or 18 different buttonholes. And you might say, well, how the heck do I know which one to do? All you have to do is tell it what kind of fabric you're sewing on, and it'll pick the buttonhole for you. So if I go over here and tell it I want to sew on a stretch, medium, and I want to continue with the buttonholes, you see it picked a different, not only did it pick a different buttonhole, it's telling me that it wants me to do a corded buttonhole. So you see how it has the little cord in there back behind the tail on that C foot? So just by picking a different fabric, it automatically told me which one I should use. So it's kind of how the sewing advisor works. Judy, any other
Also,
example?
Carol,
Go ahead.
Well, if you touch the question mark and you
Oh, yeah.
touch, say, like number 45 buttonhole, it tells you what kind of garments it thinks you should use those buttonholes on. Not necessarily fabric, but the type of garment.
Okay, so touch the
So
buttonhole.
if I touch the question mark and then touch a buttonhole, and it tells you what kind of garment that buttonhole is constructed for.
Okay, so question mark and then touch the buttonhole. Okay, for most weight fabrics. Okay. Let's
Or
see.
like I just touched number 55 and it says rounded heirloom buttonhole for hand look on fine and delicate fabrics.
Okay.
So even, you know, a combination of the two should certainly get you to the most appropriate buttonhole for your whatever you're putting it on.
Okay. And the other thing that came up, if you guys select buttonhole number 58, like Jude said, and you look down here, now we have something different. We still have our stitch width, but we have a different symbol. And that is where the stitch length was, and that's actually the density. So if I minus the density down, you can see that the buttonhole right on your screen is starting to get more filled in stitches. And I don't know if you can see it by looking at mine, but if you're doing it on yours, you can see it. And say you don't want it as tight, you don't want it as dense, then I can go the other direction and it won't be so dense. So that's kind of what the fabric advisor and sewing advisor do for you by telling it what you want to do and what fabric you're sewing on. So if you can just even use that, you're going to eliminate a whole bunch of issues by just using that sewing advisor. And it's really not hard to do because it tells you what qualifies as those kind of fabrics. Let me see what else we had on that. I'm going to go back over to start new. And the other thing, I don't know if you guys know, is if you do this with your fingers, the opening up, you can start looking at your stitches in pretty good detail. So say you don't know where your glasses are and you don't want to make a bunch of racket in the house in the middle of the night, you can see how close in you can get looking at a stitch. And then you can squeeze to get it back to where it was.
Also, if you touch the stitch symbol down in your menu bar there, touch that.
That one? Oh,
and it expands your window.
Yeah, I forgot it did that.
And if you touch it again, it'll go back. So sometimes you're not seeing as many stitches as you want in the normal size stitch window, but that lets you see more at once.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, oops. And while you're down there, you can also swipe this way and scroll through your different menus as well. So you do have a ton of different ways that you can select your stitches. Okay, I'm just glancing through. And like I said, if we were in the shop, we would actually sew out each one of these functions, but since we don't have the fabric, we're not going to do that today. So I think that about covers what we wanted to cover. Judy, you have anything else in mind today?
Not really. You covered the feet. The only thing, we didn't do anything with the automatic buttonhole. I didn't know if you wanted to do that.
Do you have the stuff there to do one or no? Because we can start with that.
We can start with that next time.
Yeah, in case you haven't done a buttonhole. Okay, just a couple other really quick things on the screen and then we'll call it a day is beside your question mark, you have that little guy up at the top that looks like a gear. And that is going to take you into your settings or what used to be the tools. And you're going to see there temporary settings for sewing, temporary settings for embroidery. And then your Wi-Fi settings are down here. So right now I'm not on Wi-Fi and I probably don't have my password, but this is where you're going to check your Wi-Fi connections. If for some reason we needed to know what your serial number was on your machine, you can find that by going under machine information.
And to tell you what release, what level of software you're on.
Yep. And the other thing that's there on the EPIC2 is the multifunction foot, but we'll do that a different day. So if you can explore in there a little bit, see what's what. Here is under that machine settings is where Judy was mentioning that she has her machine set up as burgundy blush. So you can change the colors on the screen right here under color theme. You can make it so there's a clock that shows at the top in case you want to know what time you got to go put the dinner in the oven or something. And if you want to operate in a different language, you even have that right there as well. And
no, thank you.
Yeah, well, if you want to entertain yourself one day, you could do that. The volume of your your alarms, you can change that. And the other thing you can change is the brightness of your LEDs. And I was doing the class.
The next one.
Yeah.
The inch and millimeter thing.
Oh, yeah. Question? I heard somebody.
Yeah, I wanted to tell you a funny story about be careful when if you do test out the language thing. I had somebody do that in my car for my GPS.
Oh.
And not only did the language change, but all the writing changes. So if you don't know the language, you don't know how to get out of it.
Yeah.
Just be warned.
Be warned because I can't tell you how many people with designer ones did that and then oh my gosh, you can't see everything at once. You had to tell them when to push next because they couldn't read anything. It's kind of the same deal. And you can also name your machine too. You got a nickname there. You can name your machine. The one thing that I have had some people do this more than once is the units of millimeters and inches. They got themselves switched over to inches and then they couldn't understand why they couldn't adjust their stitch to the number they wanted. So I will give you a little word of caution if you're doing that. I don't know how they're doing it by accident, but somebody's done it more than once. And I know we had a flat spot on our head from hitting it against the wall, trying to figure out what they had done. But so just know if something seems weird, that's another place you can get yourself in a little bit of trouble. Okay, anybody have any more questions for today? No.
Thank you, Carol.
Anybody have anything that they want to be covered for next time?
Okay, so the next time we'll start with like a buttonhole. And so if you have never made a buttonhole, have a piece of fabric and some stabilizer ready and we'll actually do one and you will see how incredibly hard it is. Or not, or not. Or
Yeah,
not.
no fair. Thank you very
Yeah.
much, Carol and Judy both.
Thank you, thank you.
I hope you guys at
Thank
least
you
learned,
for being.
I hope you learned one new thing at least.
I did.
Thanks
Okay.
so much. Off to practice.
Okay. All right. I'll try to get the
Bye.
recording up here later
Thank you.
today. Bye. Thanks, guys.
Bye, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.